Hi, guys, it's Amanda again and Chandra on the Beauty and the Beat podcast. And, today we wanted to talk to you a bit about health. So, Chandra, um, what have you been up to this week? Like, what has been up? Because I know you've been busy, busy, busy. And could you tell us just a bit about what's been going on? Because we didn't see you last week.
I know. I'm so sorry to miss it. Well, there's just been a lot of transitions. My son went to or ended school, started summer school, started a new job. I
Oh,
took him on a
wow.
quick, yeah, I took him on a quick trip to Hawaii. He really had a tough pandemic year being a freshman in high school and not really having that great of a social experience. So I thought before he signs up for summer school and starts a new job, he just needed that little break. So yeah, unfortunately I couldn't make last week, but I did watch it on Facebook and it just looked great. And I'm excited about
Oh,
today's guest as well.
yeah. But we've got this amazing guest today, Desiree Lotz. So today, Chandra and I are going to be talking a lot about nutrition and health and how, we should be keeping healthy and we should also notice the symptoms early on before
Mm,
things get bad.
mm.
So today, that said, Desiree is amazing at this. So Desiree Lotz has been helping people with their health for more than 40 years. Her basic philosophy is that all symptoms people experience is an indication that they have deficiencies or excesses in their diet.
Mhm,
Desiree loves what she does, and she's from South Africa, which
mhm.
I love very much. I've been to Cape Town, Johannesburg, and all these wonderful places, but she now resides in the USA. She has helped people deal with their stress and improve health conditions and even see early signs of possible sickness. That's very interesting. She has also helps people to overcome addiction. For her, helping people is the most important thing in her life, whether it's with basic information about their bodies or guiding them on how to look for what is best for them. Desiree, I'd like to welcome you to the Beauty and the Beat podcast.
Thank you. It's so nice to be with you guys.
Yeah,
Welcome.
it's welcome. So today we're going to talk about health and all of that and deficiencies and everything. So I'll just like to start you with, you telling us a bit about yourself and how did you arrive at this place?
Well, more than 45 years ago, I found nutritionist Adele Davies. Many people don't know her, especially the younger ones, because she's no longer around, but she was one of the earlier nutritionists. And that was before I fell pregnant with my first child. And it was amazing, the information. The first book I got was Let's Have Healthy Children. And then I got her Let's Get Well. So I really learned. And in the Let's Get Well, any symptoms you have or whatever's wrong, you go and look and you can find what is needed by the body. And then when I was when I fell pregnant and I was got into her Let's Have Healthy Children book, it was very interesting because obviously there's all the health things that I learned, but there was one very, very important piece of information, and that was if your oxygen levels are low, the baby's oxygen levels will be low, and if the baby's born and has got the cord around the neck, um, it could be end of story for the baby. And so from learning that, I learned that if you have enough vitamin E, that provides oxygen through the bloodstream. So then it gives the baby a much better chance of survival. But anyway, that was just one of the big things that stuck out with me. So over the years, I've been working using her formulas and her information. And I now actually have on my website something called a nutritional program, and that is based on her. She calls it the pep-up formula, but basically, and the ingredients there are other things in it, but the main thing is brewer's yeast, and brewer's yeast is such a basic good source of the B vitamins and even some of the minerals, and the brewer's yeast has got all the B vitamins in balance, because you can take 25 milligrams of B1, 25 milligrams of B6 and all that. That's not balance. When it comes out of nature, it's balanced. When you go to the laboratory and you extract this one and that one, it's no more balance. So there's basic stuff like that. And then The formula also has lecithin in it, which is an emulsifier, and that breaks down the particles. So, I mean, I've learned so much. It's like, I'm not sure what subject we're going to cover, but I can talk about the nervous system. I can talk about dehydration. These are huge subjects. So,
So before we dive into the specific nutritional solutions and things, I just
mhm.
want to make sure we're clear that so you have a website where you offer different formulas and also advice around nutrition and special plans, or how do people actually engage with you?
Okay, good question. So basically, this nutritional program, I actually have it on my site, and I call it nutritional program, and it's basically it's interesting because what I did was I took information like if you've got the walls in your house keep cracking, and you keep plugging up the cracks, they're going to keep cracking unless you repair the foundation, so they stop cracking. And the human body is exactly the same. So symptoms are like the cracks, and you keep plugging it up with this medication or that, whatever, this and that, and it just never repairs because it's not covering the basics. It's not building the foundation of the body and putting it in good condition. So it doesn't need to crack anymore.
And so would that mean that somebody who is seeing these cracks, so they have symptoms or signs of something going on,
Mm-hmm.
that they can go to your website and find out maybe what's underlying it and how to not just plug the cracks but get to the underlying issues?
Yeah, I don't have that much of that type of information, but I do have a lot of information. On this article, I cover the basics, and the basics is this formula is so fundamental that it helps to build the body. So if somebody's having problems, if they go onto the formula, and you can get as long as you buy good ingredients, non-GMO, and all the good positive stuff, and you make your own smoothie, then that will be a good start. And then once you've been doing that for a while, then you can see if there's still outnesses. And for example, when people first go onto this formula, very often they get bloating, gassiness, and all kinds of stuff. And my advice is always reduce the formula how much you're taking, but do not stop, because all of those signs are signs that your body is repairing and it's getting rid of stuff. So if there's discomfort, let's say bloating or gut things or whatever, just take enzymes or something and get your way through. And the way I explain this too is it's not on my site anymore, and I don't know what happened to it, but I had a photograph of marigolds, which are flowers, if anybody doesn't know, beautiful growing marigolds, but then there's like weeds creeping over the plant. And it's like, now those weeds are like it's bad bacteria and stuff. And when you're deficient in these like B vitamins and stuff, the bacteria will grow. So when you start taking the right stuff, and that it starts to kill off the bad bacteria and build up good bacteria, there is going to be discomfort. And the whole idea is do not stop. Keep going.
So the formula, is it something they buy from you, they make on their own? Is there a recipe for those smoothies? What all can they?
Yeah, now I don't sell the ingredients except for the CalMag, which is part of what you need to take. But the ingredients you can get from a decent health food store or somewhere that sells decent stuff, non-GMO, good quality, organic and real stuff, not. And the brewer's yeast definitely must be non-GMO. And a lot of people think because it's called brewer's yeast that that's a fungal thing. It's totally different. It's got nowhere near the same meaning. And brewer's yeast comes from the manufacturing of beer, and it's a byproduct, and it's actually very healthy. So yeah,
I
I
have
take
heard of
brewer's.
that. Right. It's different from like a yeast, a candida type of yeast, right? It's a healthy yeast. So it sounds like you sell the CalMag on your website, and that's part of the formula. They can go to your website and learn more about why they would need the formula and what it'll do, and kind of how to make it on their own.
Yep. But then I've got other information too, but because it depends on the person. Um, for example, high cholesterol, people that have got high cholesterol, let's say, it's one of the things. Then they give them all kinds of drugs and stuff, and a lot of those drugs are so dangerous. And there's so much misunderstanding on what high cholesterol actually is. And basically, your body cannot survive without cholesterol. Your brain needs cholesterol. But what happens in the body, in the blood system, particles of fat or other things are floating. It can even be bad kind of calcium. There's different forms of calcium. These bad things can be floating around in the bloodstream, and they deposit on the side of the walls or whatever, high cholesterol, wherever that goes, into the heart area, whatever. But all that is fat particles, and they're not breaking down. So the lecithin actually breaks down all the particles in the bloodstream. And I have an article on that on my website too, because to me, it's so important that and I can't make claims because I'm not a trained medical person, but whatever, but I see so much false data and wrong information and people being put onto medication when nobody's actually addressing the basic fundamentals that need to be addressed with the human body.
Can I ask you some questions? One thing I want to ask is, first of
Mm-hmm.
all, what is this formula? And second of all, have you run any tests? Because you've got all this information, which I guess it's like really good. But have you run
Mm-hmm.
any tests? Has there been any research you can refer to, or any trials where you can say, okay, I've tried this with patients or that with patients? Because also at the same time, I know you're not a medical professional, but how do you, justify that this really does work?
Well, basically, I can't answer that question because I haven't done that kind of research. I've based all my data on, first of all, Adele Davies, and then another guy, Dr. Royal Lee, who is the founder of the Standard Process supplements here in America. And I've got a lot of reference works and other good old time nutritionists, not the modern plug, fix, kind of thing. It's like what the fundamentals are. There is a lot of information out on the internet that people can go and do research, let's say about lecithin. I'm just going to show you something here, just to give you an idea. Just remind me to tell you about when you're detoxing or stuff like that. In these two bottles here, they've got identical amounts of oil and water in them, exactly the same as this. The difference here, it's got lecithin. So you take the particles. Oil is a much bigger particle than water, and so it floats on top always. But you mix the two, now it's all blended. And that's what it does in the human body. It blends and breaks down the particles. It's so powerful, the lecithin, they even use it to make paint on the walls because the paint has got particles in it. And you don't want all these ugly little particles on your wall. So they use lecithin to break down.
What was the name of the chemical again? The pharmaceutical or the I don't know what it is, a nutritional, nutraceutical, lecithin. What did you call the name?
Okay, Lecithin. And it's called an emulsifier. They use it to make
Okay,
chocolate
I
and they
know
put it
that.
in that.
I
Yeah,
pronounced it different,
yeah.
but I didn't know that's how it was pronounced. Actually, to be honest,
How do you say it?
Leci. I used to call it lectin or something like that. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah, it's lecithin, yeah. Mm.
What is the original source of that? Does it come from a plant, or what is it coming
Well, you
from?
can, it comes from soybeans. Now, the only thing is you've got to make sure that the soybeans are not GMO'd.
GM.
Yeah. And then there's sunflower lecithin and egg lecithin. Now, the interesting part is when people have high cholesterol, the doctors tell them they mustn't eat eggs. That is such I just like it so mad because eggs are high in lecithin and lecithin breaks down the fat particles. So, anyways, that's, yeah. So it's called an emulsifier, and those good quality chocolates that have got that beautiful smooth taste, and they've got to put enough lecithin in, otherwise, and that's what is making that smooth taste.
You talk about eggs and them being good with lecithin. Um, wouldn't you say raw eggs are better then? Because I think once you've cooked these things, a lot of times, you've lost the nutritional value.
The benefits. Well, I mean, yes, it is, but I've had eggs my whole life, and I have it for breakfast, and I don't do it raw. But it depends on the person. You can do your own research and see what works for you. But
So, going
you
back to the
know,
formulation, what is the formulation? Because that's one thing I was asking. Like you were talking about this formula. What could you tell us what the
uh,
ingredients of the formulation is?
okay, I don't have it up in front of me now, but basically brewer's yeast, lecithin, um, wheat germ oil, cod liver oil, like a good quality fish liver oil, and a good quality superfood that has, like, it's kind of a raw, like it's got the vitamin C and all the other factors, so that when you mix this thing, you've got a combination of all the basic nutrients in a food source, and not chemical or anything like that.
So if someone's a vegetarian, would you recommend that they replace the fish oil with another type of oil, like an udo's oil or like a
Yeah,
flaxseed oil?
flaxseed, yeah, as long as you're getting all the essential fatty acids and stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, because there's other important information why that's also important. And I also have this on my website from Dr. Royal Lee. Very often people get told by their doctors, oh, your calcium's too high when they do blood tests and stuff. There's so much false information that it's like unbelievable. Basically, on the side of your thyroid is here, and then you've got these four little glands on the side. They are called the parathyroid, and they're not got anything to do with the thyroid. They just happen to be alongside. Now, the parathyroid is your calcium monitoring gland. So let's say vitamin D. We know that you need vitamin D to absorb calcium. Most people know that. So you got the calcium comes in, you get it into your body, and now it floats around in the bloodstream. But now, sometimes some people's calcium is too high or whatever. And what's happening is that they don't have the other side of the fish, the vitamin, the essential fatty acids, which is vital for pulling the calcium out of the bloodstream and into the bones or wherever it's got to go in the tissues. So then what happens, it's floating around and they're not getting, and then when they do tests, it's high calcium and all that, all that's happening is they need the essential fatty acids to pull it into the whichever part, which cells need it.
So then are you asserting that this formula would help kind of take care of a lot of those common issues around what now you mentioned you know, you mentioned a couple, but there's so many different things people could be challenged with. So how many different conditions do you think that this recipe would support?
Oh my golly. How many conditions does a human body get?
So so you're saying it's kind of a foundational
Yep.
type of thing? Okay.
Yeah, that's why on the where my article, this particular one is posted, there's a picture of a guy fixing cracks in a wall, and
Hmm.
it goes into this whole thing. If you
Yeah.
keep fixing the cracks, you're going to keep having cracks. Build a foundation, and then if there's a crack, it's you got less problems to find. Okay, maybe I had too much sugar or whatever. You can, generally speaking, you'd be kind of more alert to it.
Well, it sounds like a beautiful gift. I mean, it doesn't sound like there's much downside because it's all natural and
Mm,
it's just additives for a smoothie and whatnot. I think what's difficult for a lot of people is knowing whether they're facing certain things. Like they might have, like you said, cracks or different symptoms going on,
mm.
but they don't know specifically that they're high in calcium, or they don't know that they don't know
Yeah.
exactly what the problem is. So would you recommend that they just go to like a functional medicine doctor for that? And then like what I'm trying to get at is, what do you think would support people the most? And then where do you fit in terms of supporting people? Because it sounds like you're generously offering this formula. what else are you looking to, how else are you looking to engage with people?
Well, I sell my CalMag because I manufacture my own in a very
Okay.
specific form. 2 parts of calcium to 1 part, but the calcium that's in there is a very specific calcium, and I'll get back to answering that question. I'm always happy to help. People can email me anytime. There's no obligation to get anything from me or anything because I use muscle testing. Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
So people that are physically with me, I check them out. And there's something that we can touch on. We must come back to this because it's so vital, and that is dehydration. But I will touch on that because that's such an important subject. So basically, if anybody's got symptoms and they don't quite know where to find an answer, and sometimes you can get out there and there's so many fad diets and all kinds of stuff, I avoid all of that. I've never gotten into that. I look for the basic fundamentals and fix that. And then, and if somebody's got a good, decent, natural doctor who's not like, I know it all type of thing, he's willing to look and address these things, that kind of person is the only kind of person I would go to. And I do have a couple around where I live. And so if I've got any questions, I'm not sure, I'll go and get myself tested.
I'm curious if you would, I think it would be a good idea for you to describe muscle testing to the audience because not everybody will understand it. And I have a chiropractor acupuncturist that does muscle testing. I wanted to tell you on a side note, because you mentioned standard process, that I started working with a company called Aduco, which used to be they used to use standard process for distributing their products, and now they have their own line of products, but it's very similar type of, it's all functional medicine, all, food grade product, all that. And so it was interesting because the CEO once kind of said he muscle tested me from afar and gave me a couple of his formulas to try. And do you believe in that's possible that you can muscle test from afar? So start with explaining what muscle testing is, and then maybe just answer that for me.
Okay, so muscle testing. So basically you use the person's arm, you push on the arm and then check that it can be tested. And then there's a point here that I check and then the arm goes down. So what you're doing with muscle testing is, let's say I want to see if Amanda's got something, for example, deficiency, check her adrenals, and then I'll touch point. And this is all kind of based on Oriental medicine. So it's like the meridian points in the body. So I would test her here, and if it's strong, fine. I test her liver, test this part and different parts of the body. And if the arm goes down, goes weak, then I know there's something that needs to be sorted out there.
One hand is on the part of the body that you're concerned with, and then the other hand, you're pushing against her arm to see if it's weak or strong.
Right. So I push on the arm, and then I'll test different parts. And then if there's any part that tests weak, yes, then I would find the solution, find in all the supplements or whatever that I've got to test with, find out what makes it strong. And whatever makes it strong, generally speaking, is the correct, what her body that person's body needs.
Yeah, my guy will put even sometimes the supplement on my tongue and then see if how I'm reacting to it. And sometimes he'll say, "No, it's not that," or "That's the one." And it is still kind of unbelievable to me that you can figure it out from that, because sometimes when he tests me, it's so brief and I don't even feel like I really use my full strength to push against him. And I'm wondering, how does he know that? It does seem a bit mysterious in terms of being.
Yeah, when I test people, I always make sure that arm is resisting strong, and it's not, so that I can test. And if I test animals or babies or children, then all I do is get the mom or whoever to touch the baby, and then I use the mom's arm, because very often small kids can't, they can't really do it, but you can test using somebody else's arm. And it's Oriental type medicine, and it's based on, it's been around for a long time. It's called, the technical word is applied kinesiology. Kinesiology to do with motion. So, and I can test, like, for example, there's a midpoint there between your boobies. If I'm not sure about something, let's say sugar, I want to test the sugar on you. I can use that point to see if your arm goes down or stays up. Anything that I'm not sure, I can use that point, and I use it a lot. And one of the main points that I use is the dehydration point. This is such a critical, crucial thing. What I've found is that 99.9% of people who I test poorly on that point. So if you look here, when a baby is born and the fontanelle where the bones join here, that's the testing point for
on
hydration.
the top of the head, right? So there's some people may
Yeah.
only be listening to this via audio, so I want to make sure that they're still able to follow us. So you're
Okay.
touching the top of your
Yeah.
head, and you're talking about where the baby's bones come together is a special point for dehydration.
For all of us, yeah, because it's the
Okay.
fontanelle or yeah. So basically, I test that point, and like as I said, most people test weak on that. So, and I'm a detox specialist, and when you in our detox form and way we do it is in a sauna. So when you've got people sitting there for several hours in a sauna, you've got to be so alert to dehydration, because that is a very dangerous thing that can happen to people. So you've got to be sure people are hydrated. And for many, 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 many years, I've been running that in that manner. And it was only, I've only kind of probably about 12 or 13 years ago, I discovered there's way more to dehydration than just needing salt. When I talk about salt, I'm talking about that white rubbish that you buy in the supermarket, the bleached stuff that's, that salt is one portion of salt. The salt that I use and that I encourage people to use is this.
The Celtic sea salt.
Yeah. Now, Celtic sea salt has got roughly around 80 minerals in it. So I ask people this question: can drinking water dehydrate you? And I get a variety of answers. So what do you ladies think? Can it dehydrate
just by
you?
drinking plain water?
Mm-hmm.
I'd
I
say
guess
no, but I feel like this is a
yeah,
good question.
I think it can dehydrate you. I can see where you're coming from. I think what you're going to say is that drinking water can wash out the minerals in your body if you drink too much.
Yeah.
Well, you got it. And it's not even too much, because basically what happens when you drink, you pee. You drink, you pee, and this goes on and on and on. And what's happening is you're losing more and more minerals. So you have to replenish the minerals. And I'm not talking about this Gatorade junk and all that stuff. That is poison. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we do. We drink coffee and blah, blah, blah. And that, I drink 2 cups a day. So some people drink more. But as long as you're aware that you are.
What about Himalayan salt, Himalayan pink salt?
That's okay. But the reason that I'm for this salt particularly is because it comes from the sea. And it's got iodine in it. And the other salts I'm not sure if they've got iodine in them. And iodine is vital for the thyroid. And there's lots of other information which we can talk about another time. Thyroid is where radiation and all kinds of things enter your body. And this is your metabolism gland, but that's another subject. I won't get into that now. So what I do is I have a glass bottle. I just use this bottle because I like it's glass. And this is my water, decent quality water, and I put that salt into it. That's the only
Every
way I
day
drink my
you
water.
drink salt water.
Salt. And
just how much salt are you talking about?
Yes.
Like a small pinch, or how much?
Good question. Everybody's going to need a different amount, because your body has different needs. So basically what I tell people is put the salt in the water, shake it up, taste it. If it's too salty, obviously it's too much salt, and you can add a bit more water. If it's flat tasting with no taste, it hasn't got enough salt in it, because the salt is what gives the water that vibrancy and that life. Salt comes out of the waterfalls and comes out of all these places. Our water used to be high in minerals, but with all this, I don't even want to go there, stuff that's been happening to our planet and all the junk stuff they're putting in, we're losing more and more minerals. So this is vital for people to replenish. So it's the salt and the CalMag. These are your minerals you need. So just to give you a little explanation there on that, when the electricity comes into your house and it's working well, everything's working, all good, no problem. But when there's interference, flickering and blah, 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 and if there's a major power outage, electricity is off. In the human body, the central nervous system is the electricity of the body. And the central nervous system, the base of it is in your skull. And then it's all these nerves connected to all different parts of your body that do different things. So when it's all working well, then you're good. You don't have pain, you're happy, you sleep well, and all these things. So when there's interferences, there's kind of flickering in the body. And in a worst case scenario, zip, heart attack, gone. But that's extreme.
So I was listening to what you were talking about, the interferences in the body and the salt. And, one thing I was thinking about was, doctors actually tell people to take less salt. I mean, you're talking about the Celtic salt, which has got minerals. But then I also wanted to ask, what about mineral water? Like Evian, or, if it's coming straight from the volcano, or, Fiji water, hasn't that got minerals?
Yeah, you'd have to
Mm.
it might have, but you'd still have to test. You'd still have to be sure. And that is a good question about the blood pressure. I've tested, and many people now, the salt that is poison is that white stuff, and that is definitely a no-no. But this salt is so vital for the body. I've actually had people, and one lady from France came to see me. Her blood pressure was so high that there was a certain hotel she couldn't even go into because it was like scary high. So she came to see me, and I tested her, and I used to be able to get these, and I don't get them anymore. But this is seawater in this glass ampoule. When I tested her, she needed 8 of these. Then she called her doctor in France to, discuss it with him. And he said, no, you can't take salt, your blood pressure, blah, 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 But she didn't listen to him. She listened to me and took 8. The next day, her blood pressure was down. Because here's basically the thing. All these minerals is what the body needs. That white stuff is poison. That is a problem. So basically, if you're getting all the stuff you need, you're going to... Now, if you take... just to understand this, if I took this salt water in here and we did a chemical test of it, analysis, and you take your blood and test it chemically as well, it's almost identical chemically. So when you cry, your tears are. When you sweat and you lick it, if you prick your finger and you go like that, the blood is, that is just exactly how the body works. This is the blood system is salty.
I have a question as well. What about water retention? Because I find, like, for me, I have water retention, especially in my ankles. I retain water very easily, so I try to avoid
Mm-hmm.
salt. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
of water retention. Because
And what kind of salt?
I find like I just avoid salt in general. I have salt, but I've noticed I have water retention, so I know salt can cause water
What kind of
retention.
salt, though?
So I
The
avoid
junk
salt.
salt.
Yeah, and I just in general thought any type of
No.
salt,
You'll have to test it for yourself, obviously. Try the real good salt. And then if you're still having that issue, then you might just need somebody to check and see you might need a bit more potassium or something. But that is just a sign of probably the wrong salt. But that's
Okay. So you think potassium could be a balance for water? Because I know people say eat bananas, and potassium could be a balance for water
But it might not
retention.
be the problem. It might just be the wrong salt, because this has got roughly about 80 minerals in it, and it's got potassium. It's actually got calcium, magnesium, and lots of other. It's got a lot of minerals. So basically, your body I would test it for a while, the real salt, and get rid of anything other salt, and then see if it's still doing what the water retention thing.
So do you think that the salt, the Celtic salt, could actually help the water
Yeah,
retention? As in it will help put minerals in
yep,
the system that could actually work the other way
balance it
round.
up. Your body needs to be balanced, yeah.
Hmm.
And you know where the word, yeah, you know where the
Interesting.
word salt comes from?
Chandra and I are going to be off to Whole Foods to buy Celtic salt.
Yeah, and
I might even have some. I know I've been doing sea salt, and I,
Yeah.
like you, have
mhm.
used the
Yeah.
Himalayan salt as well. So yeah, it's a good reminder though. And for people who have not had the awareness
Mm.
about salt, it's a hot tip, right? I'd love to talk to you about when to detox. So if you're saying that you're a detox specialist, I'd like to know, how would I know that I need a detox? At what point is a detox something that is helpful versus potentially harmful if, I'm
Um,
depleted or
the
something?
detox project that program that I do is not everybody has to do a detox program this particular way in a sauna, doing because um, we all either loaded with chemicals from the environment or from medications we've had or junk foods like Gatorade type stuff where there's chemicals in there. But so this is basically what happens. I'll just give you an explanation. Your body's got an ability to get rid of certain amount of toxins, but it can't cope with, there's so much overload of toxins in the environment that it can't cope with it all. So the body is a very clever animal. It gets rid of what it can, and what it can't, it coats in fat and deposits it in the fatty tissue. And so we've got it there. It's kind of living in our fat. So, I'll give you a kind of and how it affects one emotionally as well, and how it affects one physically. But just to give you an example, so let's say, for example, you go to the pub with your husband, and the two of you are drinking and getting drunk, let's say, and there's a guy in the pub and he's flirting with the wife, and the husband gets all mad and punches up the guy, and he punches him, and there's like all kinds of stuff going on. So now you've got this alcohol in your body. You leave and go home, and the same procedure happens. The body can get rid of some of those alcohol particles, but not all. So it coats some of it in this fat and deposits it in the fatty tissue. Now, let's say you're at work and you haven't eaten, or you're upset about something that happened or whatever. Your body pulls energy from the fat. So this particle comes back in this alcohol particles in it, let's say, and it releases into the bloodstream. Now, all the emotion and all the drama that went along with that particle in the pub is going to manifest itself here. You're going to feel angry. You're going to feel, whatever the emotions were, upset, worried about your wife, kind of stuff, because this is sitting deposited there. So you've got people who've been drug addicts, because I started off doing this to help free up drug addicts, but it's everybody has this problem. So even sunburn, radiation, your body absorbs it, and radiation doesn't go out your body, it builds up. So all of this stuff is sitting in your body, and when you do the detox, you want to get it out. So like even lecithin's part of it, and this vitamins it's a very key thing, and the CalMag and stuff. So you help the person sweat it out, make sure they're hydrated, and then all these toxins are getting released. And then there probably would be a lot of discomfort, because I've seen people, upset, but you help them to push through and get them out the other end so that they are now free of toxins. And I'll just give you a good example. When I first personally did the program, when I was a teenager, you see, I've got red hair. And so I've got that kind of skin, especially in South Africa, where you can get very red and blah, blah. And when I did this program, detox, I had bikini. So I had bikini with the white part covering my boobs, and around, where you got the bottom part. When the radiation came out, all the parts that were exposed were red, 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 and the parts that weren't exposed were white, just like it was in my bikini. You could see my bikini shape. So basically that's what radiation does, and it builds up in the body, and that is one of the most destructive elements that we have in our bodies is actually radiation. So you want to get these toxins and all these things. So a good way to test your radiation, how radiated you are, is if you take niacin. It's vitamin B3, but not niacinamide, because that's got a suppressor on the niacin aspect. Vitamin B3, niacin, pushes the radiation out, but you don't want to take too much. I take it every single day, niacin. But if you're testing, because it can be very uncomfortable, burny sensation and all kinds of uncomfortable, I would just try maybe with 25 milligrams. I take 100 milligrams a day for years and years and years. But if somebody's not done it before, I wouldn't do it with more than, say, 25 milligrams and just see, just to get your own viewpoint on it, what it does. Then if you've got a flush or whatever, then you know, whoops, radiation.
Yeah, I've tried niacin before. I know what you're talking about. There's a hot feeling. There
Yep.
can be a tingliness that you experience. So, what does that actually mean? When you're experiencing that, it doesn't mean you just took
Nope.
too much niacin. It means that your body's actually needing to
Yeah,
detox
it basically
something.
means your body is loaded with radiation, and we're all in varying degrees. So, I mean, there's a whole subject about all kinds of other things that I can get into, but I'm not going to because it's too much information. But we can always talk about it. Pilots that fly, people that fly a lot, all kinds of stuff. But the radiation accumulates in the body. It's accumulative. It doesn't come out through normal, like other detox methods. It builds up. And so that reaction, so how many milligrams did you take when you took it?
I wish I could remember. It was part of a detox program. And so it could have been,
Okay.
100 milligrams.
So that's a good test for you. You had some kind of a reaction. And then, because when I first started my business in South Africa, I put together all these vitamins before I did the Brewers Restart thing. And I used to sell it in little daily packets. And a couple of people had this like, woo reaction. And the doctor said, oh no, you're allergic to it, and it's such a lie. What's basically happening, they're manifesting radiation buildup in the body. But I kind of had to change my way of handling it then. But you've got to make sure the person starts on a gradient.
Well, we've definitely covered a lot of topics. One that we haven't really talked about is digestive health so much. And I'm curious, especially people that have had to take antibiotics for different things, what would be your recommendation? Would this formula that you're offering be something that supports specifically digestive health as well?
And that's where I was talking about the bad bacteria and yeah, it definitely would help. But of course, a person can take some decent quality raw food probiotic type things that would help too. But there's a place where I test people next to below the gut area by the groin, close there, for that type of thing. And the other place that I also test people for the B vitamin deficiency, there's a place on the body, but I like to use the tongue. And I've got an article on my website too from Adele Davies. Your tongue tells a story. And if you look at all the different parts of your tongue, you can tell which B vitamins you're actually deficient in. Because she describes it, and I've got it on my site as well.
Oh, I'd like to see that. Yeah, I mean, it could be like a color or like a
shape around the side of the tongue, and or the groove in the.
Do you believe in tongue scraping? Do you think that's good for people?
I've never gotten into. Sorry, Martha, there was something coming up on my screen there. I've never gotten into that, but I'm sure all that type of thing, as long as you're not ingesting stuff that's questionable, that's probably not a bad idea. I don't know enough about it to say anything about it.
So we've talked a lot about digestion. We've talked about, the formulations, the healing, and all the things you do, especially the CalMag. So I guess for you think vitamin C and magnesium is very important for people, like
calcium.
Calcium.
The calcium and the magnesium, yes. But because the minerals are alkaline, the vitamin C has to adjust the pH to the middle range so the body can actually absorb it. Otherwise, it'll just deposit, because calcium deposits in the body behind the eyes, called cataracts, different parts of the body. It's because that other form of calcium is not being absorbed and used by the body. It's just depositing.
Yeah. So, I think, this has been great, and, where can people find you if if they're looking for you or they're trying to find you and they want to learn more about this?
Well, they can always email me
Okay.
anytime. And it's Desiree at calmag-c.com.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a
I'm always,
website?
calmag-c.com. So
Okay.
the email is based on that site. Yeah.
I mean, I've learned a lot, especially about the sea salt and the Celtic stuff. I'm going to definitely try that, and I'm going to reach out to you and tell you
Yeah.
if I think it's working for my water retention, because this is something I've had ever since I've been a teenager. I just retain
Oh,
water in my
wow.
ankles. So I think it's more like to do with the blood vessels rather than it's just hereditary, but it might help. You never know.
No, but it might just be that you're deficient. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Desiree, I wanted to spell your name for everybody too, because your email address, they may be like, how do I spell that? So, Desiree at, and then
Calmag,
what's the website?
CALMAG-c.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
C like calcium.
Yeah.
That
You
sounds
know,
great. One last question from my side. I have gotten so many recommendations over the years for different supplements, and if I had to put those all on my kitchen counter, it would be I wouldn't be able to choke them down. So, what can you do this with a good multi, or is this something where there's just certain things you just have to take separate? And in addition to your formula, are there still other things that people need?
That's funny that I'm laughing because you know why? How many people I've tested and they open their cupboard and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, I think what happens is people get given too many. So I think the best thing to do is to start with the basic and then look and see if there's still something that needs to be added. There's so many subjects. There's like heartburn. I can tell people about that. There's so many things with so much false information out there. But I would start with the basics. And then let's say your adrenals are giving trouble and you kind of need a bit of help because there's extra stress. Then maybe you might need, but you don't need a gazillion different things, to keep it simple.
Yeah, and I think that for women specifically, there's a lot of issues with perimenopause, menopause, urology. There's just like vaginal issues related to bacteria and yeast and things like that. So keeping that all in balance can be a struggle, especially once it goes out of balance, to try to get that all working.
Yep.
So I'm excited to try your formula, and I'd be happy to give you a testimonial if it works. It sounds pretty exciting to think of.
Can I just add something in there? You just said something that I want to quickly touch on, and that was PMS menopause. Adele Davies's information, it's also on my site. 10 days before a girl gets her period, the calcium levels start to drop. And then on the day that she gets it, it crashes out. And that's why it's also so vital that the CalMag thing is part of that, and especially 10 days before to start taking it. There's so much, it's just basic stuff. Your basic information, your hydration, your minerals, and the basic food supply, the ones that we've discussed. Yeah,
it's a shame that we just don't get it naturally from our food always. But I think that because things are so processed and everything, it's just this is a kind of a good insurance policy. It sounds like just make sure that you're covered in these basic foundational elements, minerals, and your salt intake and your emulsifiers and whatnot. So thank you for your recommendations, and we'll leave it up to the audience to try them out and give us feedback.
Yeah, we look forward to your feedback. Yeah, we'd love to get the feedback. If anyone's listening and you try the CalMag or anything, let us know. We'd love to know what your feedback is.
Yeah, great talking to you, ladies.
Thank you so much, Desiree.
Thank you, Desiree.